Chapter 1. Our One Great Love. God is love, and he who abides in love abides in God, and God in him. 1 John chapter 4, verse 16. To fall in love with God is the greatest romance. Augustine of Hippo. All that is not the love of God has no meaning for me. I have no interest in anything but the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus. Dominique Voyame. Abiding in Jesus' love is learning to believe his love is everything. I remember the day I was chosen, Nadia told me as we sat over coffee one afternoon. Earlier that morning, I had shared with her Bible college class about Paul's tender image of God adopting us as his own children, Romans chapter 8, verse 15. When I asked if anyone in the room had been adopted, Nadia shyly raised her hand, and later that day she graciously recounted what adoption was like for her. Nadia was born in an Eastern Bloc country, and her memories of the orphanage were bleak. Poor living conditions, abuse, loneliness, and worst of all, hopelessness. Nadia told me, I didn't really understand the adoption process, but I knew how it felt to watch other children get chosen to leave the orphanage and then walk back to my room alone. One day when she was 9 years old, Nadia was given a rare shower, really only a few drops of water. And then her first dress ever. Finally, Nadia was taken into a room where a smiling man and woman waited for her. They ushered her to a waiting automobile, and quickly the newly formed trio was off to the airport for a long flight across Europe and the Atlantic Ocean to the U.S. Then Nadia found herself in another car, and eventually she arrived at a home larger and nicer than anything she had ever seen. To be honest, the whole time I wasn't completely sure what was happening, she told me. I'd rarely been in a car, never on a plane, and my grown-ups only spoke English. But everything became clear when, after a bath, they tucked me in my own bed with a new pair of pajamas and fresh, crisp sheets. Then the nice man leaned over and whispered, somehow in a way I could understand, "From now on, sweetheart, call me Daddy." Pastor Kevin, at that moment, I knew I was home. This must have been what Paul wanted his readers to feel when he wrote, "You have not received a spirit that makes you fearful slaves. Instead, you received God's Spirit when he adopted you as his own children. Now we call him Abba, Father." Romans chapter 8, verse 15. Listen carefully. We aren't God's slaves. We're his beloved sons and daughters, and not by accident. He walked into the cosmic orphanage one day and chose us to be his children. Despite our baggage, brokenness, and sin, he longed for us to be his own. Sometimes in my shame, I envision someone pulling God off to the side, pointing at me and warning, God, you really don't want this one. Let me tell you why. But the truth is, he already knows all about me, not just my strengths and potential, but also every unattractive detail and weakness. He knows about you, too. And yet, he chose and chooses us still, because he's our Father, and he loves us. In fact, in his letter to the Roman Church, Paul intentionally uses an Aramaic term that implies even deeper intimacy, Abba. On the streets of Jerusalem, if you're near a young Israeli family, you'll hear the small children crying out, Abba, Abba, if and when they call for their daddy. Abba is also the term Jesus used to address his Father in Gethsemane on the toughest night of his earthly life when he felt alone and afraid. When my girls were growing up, I was their pastor, their mother's husband, co-owner of the home they lived in, and sometimes their coach. But our relationship flourished only when they could see me as their father, when they were secure enough in my love to call me Daddy.